Shalom, Maranatha, welcome to the Septuagint versus the Masoretic, the only ministry in the world that looks at the truth of the Bible, comparing the Septuagint translation, the version of the scriptures that Jesus Christ used, that his disciples used, and the early church used for over 1,000 years. That was the scriptures that they used at that time, during his time. And we look at the Masoretic text, which is what majority of the Bibles are based off of. We look at them side by side, line by line, verse by verse, chapter by chapter, and today we're looking at Genesis 19. There are 38 verses in this chapter, and beginning in verse 1, it says here, the two angels, versus there came two angels. So we can see in the Septuagint that this is talking about the same two angels that were mentioned in chapter 18, the very same ones. However, in the Masoretic, they could be completely different angels by the wording, how it's written here. Okay, and in verse 1, continuing on, it says that Lot rose up to meet these angels, and he worshipped. He worshipped with his face to the ground. However, the Masoretic says he bowed. Now, essentially they're the same action. However, worshipping is more explicit as to he is worshipping them because he perceives them as representatives of Elohim, or being Elohim to him, being superior over him. Perhaps it's just a cultural thing where you bow yourself to the ground. Doesn't necessarily mean you're worshipping. However, the Septuagint does say he's worshipping them. So that's an interesting action and an interesting discussion. Okay, in verse 2, it says here, rest from your journey, talking to the angels, versus wait all night. So it's one thing to just wait, it's another thing to rest, to actually sleep and rejuvenate yourself, or be rejuvenated. In verse 3, it says that he constrained them, which means to compel or to persuade, versus he pressed upon them greatly. So one is more persuasion. It's him, Lot, making these efforts to convince them to stay with him, versus he pressed upon them greatly, which means could imply he forced them. And we know, I don't think he would force them to do that, but again, the wording in the Septuagint is more respectful to both Lot and the angels. Continuing on in verse 3, it talks about how he served them unleavened, I should say baked, unleavened cakes. He baked unleavened cakes. So notice Lot is doing the baking here. It didn't say his wife did it. Could be his servants. Anyway, they were prepared unleavened cakes versus unleavened bread. So cake sounds more fluffy. It sounds like more substantial than just flat bread. But next we have verse 5. It says, be with them, talking about the men who want to have sexual relations with these angels, the men of Sodom, the people of Sodom, saying, bring them out to us that we may be with them. Now we know that's a sexual connotation. They want to have relations with them. Same thing in the Masoretic. It says, let us bring them out to us that we may know them. It means the same thing essentially, just worded differently. It's not a big difference. We have an omission in verse 6 talking about when Lot went out to them, to the people of Sodom, to the porch. So he went to the porch. It's a physical location. He didn't just go out at the door and it's bare. There's nowhere to go. No, there's an actual porch area. So perhaps this isn't just a simple house. Could be a big mansion. Could be a more elaborate structure than just a simple dirt hut, or however the stone houses they have in the Middle East. Verse 7, by no means, brethren, do not act villainously. So he's really emphasizing, by no means, let this not be. But in the Masoretic, he's simply saying, I pray you. So he's pleading with them, calls them brethren again, do not so wickedly. And wickedly, villanously are pretty similar. However, you can see that a lot is a lot more, no pun intended, Lot is very much considering this action that they want to take, this behavior. He considers their behavior to be reprehensible. By no means do this. Just do not do this. Never do it. Basically, he's saying, don't even do it. Don't even think about it. So he's very emphatic as to condemning their behavior, their actions that they want to do, versus just pleading with them like he has no power, like he's just at their mercy. In verse 8, we have an addition here. It says, I pray you. Let me, I pray you. Do you use them as it may please you. So he's pleading with them in the Masoretic. In the Septuagint, it says, do you, or you use them as it may please you. So pleasure yourselves with my daughters, versus you do to them what is good in your eyes. So do whatever you want. We can see that the urging in the Septuagint is sexual pleasure. He's saying, sexually pleasure yourselves with my daughters. Versus in the Masoretic, do whatever you want. You could, murder them, whatever. It just doesn't have to be sexual. It's just open to interpretation, which is very dangerous, in my opinion. And then continues on to say, do not injure these men, or do no injury to these men, which makes more sense as to why Lot would then say this. It makes more sense as to why Lot would say the following: to avoid which they came under the shelter of my roof. So they came under his shelter to avoid being injured, is Lot's understanding of the situation. On the other hand, the Masoretic says, do nothing. So don't do anything to them, because they came under the shadow of my roof to be protected, essentially. But do nothing means don't even do good to them either, which doesn't make sense, because do nothing is such a vague term. And you can see it is very general, very vague in the Masoretic text. Verse 9, there's a question being asked. They said to him, stand back there. The men of Sodom saying, stand back there. You came to live here, but you also came to judge us too? So it's a question versus a statement being made in the Masoretic, saying, stand back. And they said, this one came in to live with us in our city, and he will need to be a judge. And he needs to be a judge. So they're making a statement. They're not asking a question. It's a lot more sarcastic, a lot more demeaning in the Septuagint. And it says here, harm you. We will harm you, versus deal worse. So we can see the physical threat being made to Lot. Verse 12. Let me just pause it here. Okay, continuing on in verse 12, it says here, any other friend? So Lot is asking, or I should say the angels are asking Lot, besides family, do you have any other acquaintance, any other friend in particular, versus whatsoever you have? So it's not just people, could be animals, could be possessions, but in the Septuagint, again, it's very much talking about people, human beings, or friends. Could be animal friends, I don't know. Verse 13, their cry. Is this talking about the cry of Sodom, or the cry of the righteous in Sodom? Is it talking about a cry of help from the righteous, from the victims? Or is it talking about the cry of violence? Is it simply the noise of the Sodomites who are violent people, who are inhospitable? It's hard to say, but in either case, Yah took notice and judged that action must be taken. He needs to intervene and stop them from continuing in this way, in their ways. Verse 14, but he seemed to be speaking absurdly, talking about Lot speaking to his sons-in-law. So to them, what he was saying was very far-fetched. Like, what are you saying? This is not that it's not possible, but to them, it seemed like a joke. Like it seemed unrealistic. Okay, you're going to destroy New York tomorrow? Or not tomorrow, but soon? It's going to be destroyed, like a very mighty city. Versus, but he seemed to be as one that mocked. So it's like he's being disrespectful. Or they were disrespectful towards him in terms of their perception of who he is and what kind of things he was saying. Like he seemed like he was drunk, or I'm kind of filling in the blanks here, but basically they're saying Lot is one that's mocking, like making jokes, like he's joking around perhaps. But we can see in the Septuagint, no, they took him seriously, but although they respected him a lot more in the Septuagint, they still thought that what he said was far-fetched. It was absurd. This doesn't seem real, what he was saying, and that makes sense. A lot of people would say, if I would tell you on September the 10th, September 11th, the following day, you're going to have a big attack on New York, who would believe me? Practically no one, I think. Until it happens, and then, yeah, you do believe. Verse 15, there's an omission here of the word go forth. So you can see the angels are encouraging Lot and his family, or not just encouraging, but really exhorting them to go forth. Just go, get out of here. And then it says here, lest you also be destroyed with the iniquities of the city. So this city, Sodom, and the surrounding cities, there are 5, I believe, areas that were destroyed because of their iniquities, by reason of, versus lest you be consumed in the iniquity of the city. So the city is destroyed by the sins, not because of them, but by them. That's a pretty interesting distinction. Verse 16, they were troubled, and the angels, talking about the family of Lot and Lot himself, they were troubled. The angels laid hold of his hand, the hand of his wife, the hands of his 2 daughters, in that. So they were troubled in that. Why were they troubled? Because Yah spared him. Verses, it says, while he lingered, we have an addition of Yah being merciful unto him. They brought him forth and set him outside the city. So it's kind of inserted there. So while he lingered, it's saying that, no, they weren't troubled. They weren't emotionally moved. They were just waiting there. And then, the angels took these people who are just sitting there, kind of dumb, sitting there dumbfounded, or not even dumbfounded, just sitting there, just stoic perhaps, and based on this translation, and they took them out of there. And it says, it's kind of narrative. It's like a narrator saying, yeah, it was merciful to him, and they took him, and so on and so forth. Verse 16 in the Septuagint, you can see that, there is an emotional aspect. They were troubled. They weren't troubled in a way that, I think the troubling, their emotive state of being troubled was more related to the fact that Yah noticed his family, that he had mercy on his family. It's humbling. So he was troubled. They were troubled perhaps because of their circumstances, but On top of that, you have the creator of the universe sparing you, being merciful to you, and that should trouble you, saying, wow, how great he is, and this is such a powerful event in my life. Okay, and then it says here the angels laid hold on his hand, so it talks about them being angels, whereas no, they're men. It says here the men. No, but it reiterates in the Septuagint, these aren't just regular men, these were angels. They remained angels. Perhaps they didn't look like angels to the Sodomites, and perhaps Lot and his family regarded them as angels. However, they appeared as men, but they knew who they were. In verse 17, it says, they said, talking about the angels, saying, save your own life by all means. Versus he said. So who's he? Is that Yah? So it's kind of confusing. Why would Yah speak these words? It's the angels who are the ones that are being spoken about in this narrative, taking these actions, bringing them out on behalf of Yah. And so they say to Lot and his family, save your own life by all means, versus escape for your life. Okay. And next it says, overtaken, lest you be overtaken together with them, versus be consumed. So you can see the focus is on the Sodomites, how they were overtaken together, overtaken by the raining of the fire and brimstone, versus lest you be consumed. Doesn't say what it is, but just be consumed. But overtaken together with them. So you would be a victim of this event. We have a big difference in verse 18. I think it's the first big difference. It says in the Septuagint, I pray, Lord. So and Lot said to them, to the angels, I pray, Lord. So it's interesting. He's calling them Adon. He's not saying the Lord. He's saying, I pray, Adon. Okay, I didn't even notice that. It said Adon. Let me just write that down here. So it's Adon versus Yah. So we can see, he's not talking to Yah. He's talking to the angels, and he's calling them Lord. Lord, talking to them, or either to Yah. But it is saying the angels are speaking. They said, and he said, I pray, Lord, meaning Adon. But he could be talking to Yah too. It's hard to say, but I'm gonna lean towards him talking to the angels. Since your servant has found mercy before you. Okay, so he's talking to Yah. You have magnified your righteousness in what you do towards me, that my soul may live, but I shall not be able to escape to the mountain. Lest perhaps the calamity overtake me and I die. Okay. So we can see that the big difference here is that he's pleading to Yah, calling him Adon. Doesn't say the Lord, it says Lord, so Adon. And in the Masoretic, Lot is saying, not so. No, he's saying, no, this won't be. So we can see a clear difference where Lot is begging Yah to accept his request, that can I go to this city instead of this mountain. It's interesting because Yah is actually telling him the better advice to go to the mountain, because he actually ends up in the mountain. But in the Masoretic, again, you can see there's a bit of an argument, which is not what happened, but Lot is saying, no, Yah, I want to go to the city. So he's more argumentative in the Masoretic. And then we see here righteousness. your righteousness versus your mercy. And it says, but I shall not be able to escape to the mountain, lest perhaps the calamity, which is the raining sulfur and fire, overtake me and I die, versus I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil, which is a vague term, take me, could be anything, and I die. We have an omission in verse 20, talking about the city. There shall I be preserved. So he's saying the city's going to preserve me. But he's also connecting this rescue to Yah. He's saying, my soul shall live because of you. Yeah, although you allow me to go to the city, it's you who ultimately is the preserver of his soul, who keeps him safe. In the Masoretic, it doesn't say, there shall I be preserved. It doesn't say that at all. And then it says, because of you. Yeah, so because of you is also omitted as well, which again brings the connection of Yah and his providence relating to him, not just because of anything else. There's no other reason but his providence. Verse 21, I have had respect to you also about this thing. This is Yah speaking to Lot, versus I have accepted you concerning this thing. So the difference here is, yes, I will respect your request because of my respect for you, versus I have accepted you because of this thing, because of this request. Doesn't make any sense. So it makes more sense to me that Yah's respecting Lot's request because of his respect for Lot, and perhaps even his association to Abraham as well. And I think that's probably what it's more related to. But Lot on his own accord is the most righteous from that city. Verse 22, I shall not be able to do anything, versus I cannot do anything. So we can see the difference is that that he can't, but he won't. I will not. I choose not to do anything until you're safe. Verse 24, this is an interesting, could be a messianic verse here. It says, Yah rained on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from Yah out of heaven. So is this one entity saying that I'm taking this brimstone and fire from myself? Or is it perhaps Yah the Son? I'm kind of filling in the blanks here, just reading in between the lines, that could be the pre-incarnate Jesus Christ, the Word, who is the one raining brimstone and fire from Yah the Father out of heaven. Could be just speculation, but that makes more sense to me, that he would be the one carrying that out in a pre-incarnate, his pre-incarnate form, that Yah is raining this down from Yah. But again, that's speculation, just my gonna throw that out there. Verse 25, I should say verse 26, it says there was an addition from behind him. So they added there that regarding Lot's wife, that she looked back from behind him. From behind, who's him? Lot? Or who's it talking about? Doesn't really say who him is, but she simply looked back, is what happened. Verse 28, we see a significant difference here, talking about the flame that went up from the earth. So Abraham is looking towards Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding country. It's a big area, and he looked to see a flame that went up from the earth like the smoke of a furnace. So yeah, flames, fire, and smoke behave similarly in the way that they move. So he saw this flame coming up, and it looked like the smoke of a furnace, but it's a flame. It's not as it was in the Masoretic, how it's recorded, it says smoke of the country. It's not smoke of the country, it's a flame. So what's the difference here? So the difference is it is actively burning. It has not been extinguished. It's burning. So he rose up early and he could see that it was still burning. It wasn't extinguished. It wasn't smoke. It was a flame. Moving on to verse 31, talking about Lot's daughters, the elder and the younger, versus the firstborn and the younger. They're talking about, as it is fit in all the earth, which is, I relate to the way of Yah, as the way of Elohim, where he instructed man to be fruitful and multiply. So it is fit in all the earth for them, it's becoming for them to do this, to continue the lineage of Adam's kind and to be fruitful and multiply. However, in the Masoretic it says after the manner of all the earth, so it's not the way of Yah. It's not relating to anything that Yah said or instructed. It's just the way of the world, essentially. And then verse 32, let us raise up seed from our father, versus that we may preserve seed of our father. So the difference is, let us make new seed from our father versus to keep old seed. Verse 33, he knew not, talking about Lot, he did not know when he slept and when he rose up. So he did not remember anything at all between sleeping and waking up, versus he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose, talking about his daughter. So he did not perceive her, but he could perhaps perceive other things. But no, we can see he was really drunk out of his mind, that he didn't remember anything at all. He didn't even remember when he fell asleep and when he woke up. It just happened. It's like a fever dream. He just did not know. He was that drunk. Verse 34, it says our father versus my father in the first part of the verse. And then the last difference we're going to look at is verse 38, talking about referring to the name of their son, of the son of the younger daughter by her father, called Ammon. His name was Ammon, the baby boy, versus Ben Ami. So that's all the differences for this chapter, Genesis 19. Thank you very much for your time. May God bless you and make you to prosper. Until next time, we're going to look at, we're going to continue on in our journey there, closing out the Torah. Thank you very much once again. May God bless you. And till next time, Maranatha.